The noise of the sirens I will never forget. It's imprinted on my brain. I remember a neighbour who was a warden, and his name was Mr. Coleman. And it was the warden's job to walk up and down King's Road, and if any of the neighbours had any light showing at all, it was his job to make sure that that light was put out. My grandfather would not go down to the air raid shelter we had in the garden. He refused. He stayed in his bed, and he said if it was God's judgment that he should go, then he'd go in his bed. He was not going to go into the air raid shelter, and he wouldn't go. My school, Seven Road School, I went there when I was 2 in the nursery school. Then I went on to the infant school, and it was during that time that I remember hearing the sirens warning us that there was a fighter plane coming over, and they had an air raid shelter in the schoolyard, and you had to run when you heard that siren going. I'm ashamed to say, because I had 2 brothers, I wasn't a little girl. I was very much a boy. I played all the boys' games. I liked going to Lansdowne playing football with my brothers. I often got blood on my knees, blood on my hands. My mother despaired of me. I was always playing what you probably don't know about now is alleys, we called them, marbles, in the gutters. And if you had a big alley, that was a bit special. You couldn't have sweets, as you would take for granted now, just going into the shop and buying sweets. They just weren't about because sugar was short, butter was short. They didn't. You had a rationing book, and they utilised things if they couldn't get sugar. Do you know what they put to make a cake? Sweet parsnip. Now that might sound revolting, but it works. It's not much different to carrot cake, really. I love it. But it's beef fat or pork fat or whatever fat you get from the meat that you cook. And it goes solid, and my mum used to then put it in the fridge. And then she would cook with it. If she was doing bacon, she'd take a little bit of the fat out. But if you spread that on bread, on toast, and put a bit of salt on it, it was yummy. I loved it, absolutely loved it. But a lot of my friends said, oh, I don't know how you could eat that, it's awful. Big parties everywhere, in every street. We had in our street. All the mothers of the children all contributed. There again, when the war ended, don't forget rationing was still on. So they used what they could. Jelly and blancmange was okay, plenty of that around, but little cakes that my mum made for that time, I suspect she again put grated parsnip in. But it was a lovely, happy time. And there somebody had a piano out in the street, and there was lots of singing and dancing by the older people, because it must have been a great relief for them to know that all those years of war was finally over.